Okay.
Okay. Just to begin, you give the impression of someone who was just born to sing. At what point in your childhood did the action of singing really strike a chord with you?
It always did. My mother was a singer, and we went to church all the time. So, and that's what we did. So, as long as I can remember, actually, I guess before I could even talk, really, because you're already singing and humming, and then I was always at church. So that's basically where it came from.
Yeah. Tell us about the Ten Players, I believe, an early gospel group that you were involved with.
In America,
Yeah.
oh, they were the Timberlayers, and I had another gospel group called the Corinthians as well, and I was in a few church choirs, and I played piano for two churches. Played piano on the first and fourth Sunday for one church and taught their choir, and then on the second and fourth Sunday I played and taught another choir. So I was always pretty busy with music.
Mm.
From
Do you have a vivid memory of your audition to join Argentina?
Yes, I do. That's one of my very vivid memories. I worked at a beauty shop, and a disc jockey called Eddie O'J put some posters in the window and gave me a couple of tickets. I had never been to a dance or anything like that, and I didn't know who to go with, and I didn't have a car, but I had a girlfriend who was older than me, and she had a car, so she took me. And when I got to the door, the disc jockey was there, I guess, taking tickets and putting down complimentaries, and asked me where a girlfriend of mine who sang in my gospel group was. Her name was Flora Williams, and she wasn't available at the time, and I asked Eddie O.J. what he wanted with her. And he said the Agates needed a girl, so I got very excited and said, "Oh, Eddie, I would like to go." I had no intentions of going at the time. I just wanted to see whether I could sing good enough to be in a group like that. And I kept asking Eddie if he would, take me to the audition, and he said, "Yes, I'll take you to the dressing room, and you can audition halftime, or if the show was actually over." And I went into the dressing room, and Ike Turner said, "Are you a singer?" I said, "Yes," and I started singing, and I had heard a song on the radio that you sing to, but actually when you really need to sing it by yourself, you don't really know it that well. I didn't know the song that well. It was called "I Know You Don't Love Me No More" by Barbara George. So I stopped singing and told him that I was a gospel singer and really didn't know the song that I had first attempted to sing. So he said, "Well, sing a gospel song." And Aretha Franklin had a beautiful song out then called "Never Grow Old." So I sang that. And he called Tina over to me, and we sang some harmonies. He wanted to know if I could sing harmonies, but I've been singing harmonies, from the beginning of singing, and I knew harmonies as well. And he gave me some cat fare, and he said, "Go home and get your clothes." And I woke up in Boston the next morning with a tight dress on and a wig, and started shaking my tail feather.
The stories of Ike's fiery nature and the disharmony in Ike and Tina's marriage are well documented. Were you witness to a lot of what was going on there?
Yes, yes, a little, yes.
When you first went into session work, did you have ambitions of seeing it as a career, or was it something to do in between other projects for you at that time?
No, that's exactly what I wanted to do. Um, it was starting, backing vocal work was starting to really get popular, and everybody had three black singers at that time, so we sort of came into our form and did that for about 10 years, and, times changed and sounds changed after that. But yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
Touching on some of the people you worked with in that time, you worked with the guys from Steely Dan, and those guys had a great reputation for being real perfectionists in the studio. Is that what you experienced when you were working with them?
Yes, we worked with Donald mostly because the tracks had already been laid, and Donald would take us out to the piano and give us our three parts, and he'd go back into the studio, and we could take after take after take, just punch in one particular section, and he still wouldn't take it. I remember we sang one song, I think, Big Black Cow, and we sang it for about 2 hours, and he sent us home and called us back about 2 weeks later, and we finished the song. Yes, he was very meticulous, but he taught us a lot. He was quite patient as well, never rude, never impatient. He was wonderful, and that was one of the things that I learned and knew I was capable enough to go and do other things. That was one of the things that said, "Oh, you really." When I heard that sound, "Oh, there's nothing more you can do here. You need to move on into something else." Along with singing with all the people that I'd sung with Barbra Streisand and Aretha and Boss Skaggs, and I can go on and on and on. But there came a time when I knew it was time for me to move on, and that's when I moved to Australia. I came to Australia with Boss Skaggs in 1978 and 1980, and that's when I decided to move here. And I moved in 82.
Another iconic album you worked on was the Exile on Main Street sessions for the Rolling Stones. Do you have any vivid memories of that?
I was just talking about that today. I went to one of my students' recording studio to help her record, and we were talking about that incident. Yes, I do remember it, but I remember it for different reasons. I wasn't into the Rolling Stones or the Beatles because Motown had just started opening up, so that was my music. To me, that was just another job. They weren't the mighty Rolling Stones at that time, or to me. So it was just another session, and it was a late session, and a lot of girls don't like to work late, but I would work late, and it was for cash. And what I was about to do in a few days was to go to Las Vegas and do a season with Nancy Sinatra. And in my passings, I kept continuously seeing this coat that I loved, and it kept coming down in price and price and price. And when I got the Rolling Stone session, that was the money that I was going to use to buy my coat and go to Las Vegas. So that didn't really, I didn't really care about it other than being a session. And Mick Jagger, the Stones weren't there. They had been there all morning from that morning. It was about 11 o'clock at night. Mick was still there. He was very tired. And one thing that intrigued me was he wanted to hear his vocals in deep, deep echo, which made, we fixed it, but and it gave that same feed to our earphones, but we don't like to hear it in that deep echo, but we finally worked it out. And we sang the 3 songs, and he knew what he wanted us to do, pretty much. And we did the session, and I went home and went to work with Nancy Sinatra.
You worked alongside Clyde King and Shirley Matthews as the Blackberries, and you eventually wound it up with working with Steve Marriott and Humble Pie. How do you look back on those times now?
Oh, they were wonderful, because we hadn't gone abroad by then, and his manager rang and said that Steve had rang me and said Steve had followed my career for a while, and he wanted me to get 2 other girls and come to England and record an album with them. And we did, and we got along so well, created a lot of music, and they were coming back to the States to tour. And they asked us would we come and tour with them. So basically that's how that happened. And then from there we went to Pink Floyd, because Pink Floyd was doing a few dates in Europe, and they didn't want to send for their American girls. So Dave Gilmour asked Jerry Shirley from Humble Pie if he could borrow us for a few days. And we did. And then we toured with Pink Floyd and recorded, we toured The Dark Side of the Moon and recorded the album Wish You Were Here.
Were you in the studio on that famous day that Syd Barrett paid a visit?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. I never knew him. I never saw a picture of him, but I knew that the room got very somber, and then someone told me that was Syd Barrett. And I had known a little bit about him, but they usually didn't talk about him a lot, so I didn't really know that much about him.
I guess when you toured with Pink Floyd, it would have been probably the first time you'd worked in such a huge stadium visual rock
You're
type.
Absolutely right.
What kind of impression did that have on you at the time?
Oh, a huge one, because I didn't know the group at all. and I didn't know their music. I had no idea who they were or how famous they were at that time. The music was always in a minor key and but very soothing, and so their audiences, who they played to audiences in with football stadiums with 50, 60,000 people there, where Humble Pie and the usual acts you can go to maybe from 10 to 20, but Pink Floyd had huge audiences. And Dark Side of the Moon was a huge success even before I even started singing with them, which I didn't really realize. So I learned a lot from them. That was one of my greatest opportunities and one of my fondness as far as working with the band.
Going back to the Blackberries, of course, Shirley Matthews spent some time here in Australia as well. Are you still in touch with Shirley?
Oh yes, right. We're online, so yes, we speak to each other. We quite a lot through email.
Great. What's she doing these days?
She's still working. You know, look at her website. It's amazing, the things that she's done, and she's still working. She works for churches, and she teaches children, and she records them. So yes, she's very busy.
Fantastic.
Clyde isn't as busy. Clyde probably doesn't really sing anymore, but Shirley is still very active.
In all those years of session work and doing backing vocal work, were you all the time harbouring ambitions one day to break out on your own and pursue a solo career?
Only after I said that, there came a time when I knew it was time to do something else, and I wanted to do solo work, but I was in this. You're in this box. You're at your highest field. I didn't really know how. So that's why I chose to come to Australia. I came to Australia and I heard the music. First of all, the country was so beautiful and the people were so friendly, and it reminded me of when I was a teenager, what America was like. So, but I heard the music that Australia was producing at the time, and though it was a little backward, I could understand it. So I said in my mind, this country could help me and I could help this country. And I needed to come somewhere far away that would give me the time to get myself together and become a soloist.
So looking back, it wasn't a difficult decision to make to come out here and leave everything behind?
Yes, it was difficult. What I said, I came off the stage in 80 and I procrastinated for about 2 years, but a time came when the Spirit said it's now or never. And I, also in my mind, it said if you can just get there, everything will be all right. So yeah. I took that chance.
So what was your first initial job when you settled here in Australia?
My first job was with Swanee. He recorded Temporary Heartache. That was, one of the best albums he had. And I didn't want to sing with other girls. I didn't want to intimidate them, so I started doing all the backing vocals myself. Then I did Tim Finn's album, Escapade, and then I worked with Renee a lot. Renee took me on the road, and I worked with Richard Clapton as well. Went on the road with him, and Jimmy and Cold Chisel and Jimmy Barnes. I recorded a few songs for him on several albums as well.
Have you ever stopped to ponder what direction your career may have taken had you stayed in the States?
Oh, not really, because I'm very happy here, and this is exactly what I wanted to do when I got to Australia. I wanted to act, and I wanted to get my own band, and all of that. That I probably would have been harder for me to do in America than here. And as I said, my familiarity with the music here was easy for me.
Yeah. One change in career direction you have had since you've been here in Australia, you've been involved in some musical theatre work. Is that a field you always had ambitions to be a part of?
Yes. So when I got Big River and traveled it around Australia, that's exactly what I wanted to do.
I guess by the time you left the US, you'd achieved as much as you possibly anyone could wish for over there. So I guess it would have been a major new challenge to come to a new country and virtually start all over again.
Yes, right, and I was 40 at the time. But as I said, I took a chance, and boy, did it pay off.
Of all the sessions you've done over the years, both here and back in the States, are there any that invoke the fondest memories for you?
I think working at the soundtrack for A Star Is Born was most challenging because I was very particular. And Clyde and I did the backing vocals ourselves, and we made them up ourselves. So we thought that she would change, start changing things. But she was very pleased, and she just changed something on the song "I Believe in Love." But she loved everything. And when we did the picture, she was very, very good to us. She said, "Don't let me be Barbra Streisand. Take me to your level, because this is your area. This is what you do." So anytime we had some changes to make or thoughts, she would just stop everything and take it on board. She was excellent. And so when she came to Australia in 1994, 25 years later, her company called and asked me to get girls from Australia and sing with her again. So that was absolutely wonderful.
On the other scale of things, over the years, have there been any, I guess what you could call nightmare sessions that you've worked with somebody who just didn't impress you as someone you'd like to work with?
Yes, Phil Spector.
Really?
Yes, he was very, very hard to deal with. And I walked out of his session. That's the only session I've ever walked out on, but he was about the worst. Everybody else, once we had our reputation, and we got people that, didn't go on rages, and, we went, by the time we got there, everything was fine, and it was mostly head arrangements that we did ourselves, and they just let us do what we do. But Phil Spector was like the one that I had the most problem with him. Ray Charles had a problem with him as well. Did a session with him, and that was difficult. But those are the only two.
So in your time here in Australia, what have been the most notable changes you've seen in our music industry?
Oh, well, even before I came to Australia, or when I first got here, you remember, this is a very, very small country, with a small populated country. But, for over 40, 50 years, there has always been an Australian act that would hit the international market. From Rolf Harris through to Olivia Newton-John, Little River Band, and you got Men at Work, and you started getting all the silver spoons and the gray seats and all the fat chairs and that. But yes, through all the time, there was always an Australian act that could hit that international roof and sail on to America. So that within itself shows the musicality and the great musical talent in this country.
Yeah.
For it to be such a small populated country. So I loved it. That's exactly what I wanted to do.
And not too long ago, you were inducted into the Buffalo Music Hall of Fame. Tell us what that honor meant to you.
Amazing, because when I lived there, everything was segregated, and I couldn't go to the places that I can go to now. But I thought I'd be inducted into the Hall of Music, so that was a great honor.
Mm. And the work you're doing these days, Venetta, you're working as a vocal coach. Tell us a little bit about what you've done there.
Yes. Oh, I've been doing that. That's one of the things that I wanted to do when I came to Australia. I wanted to teach. I wanted to give the legacy to other people. And I started teaching when I first moved to Melbourne. And then John Farnham came along, of course, and I spent a beautiful 10 years with him. And when we weren't touring, I would go back to teaching. And after I left, I really started teaching earnestly. And one of my singers won Australian Idol, which gave me great confidence. And then I started getting a few. I had Cody Simpson for a while. I have Starlin McCallan, who was the youngest to ever sign on Sony last year. And I have all of my kids have gone through their efforts, and they get awards, and they get high honors and recommendations, and they go and win competitions. So that's exactly what I wanted to do: teach these children the ropes and how to focus on their voices and bring the tone out of their voices and let them find their voices and help it grow. So that's been I love that.
So for you personally, how does the satisfaction of seeing one of your students to develop as a singer compare with some of your own personal highlights to your career in the past?
It's the same.
Yeah.
It's it's different, but it's just the changing of the times. But I'm still there. I'm still excited. I'm still inspired, and that's what you have to do with these children. You have to excite them and inspire them, along with teaching them how to sing, and sort of mentoring as well. I don't have any children, and I get them about 12 years old until they're about 16, and I have a ball with them.
And just before I let you go, Vanetta, upcoming plans, anything recording-wise that we can expect from you in the near future?
No.
No?
I don't want to record anymore. I don't want to get on stage and put makeup on and put high heels on and make a set list. I just don't want to do that anymore.
Right, so you're purely a teacher now.
I'm purely a teacher and a coach, yes. I want to do some things. I got a gig on the 5th of October. I'll do a few things, but not really. I'm not pursuing a solo career as such anymore.
Right. Well, thank you so much anyway for the amazing contribution you've given us to the music that we've loved over the years, both back in the States and, of course, now here home in Australia, where we consider you very much one of us. And thank you so much for your time tonight. It's been a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking to you as well.
Okay. Take care, Vanetta.
Okay.
All the
You're
best.
welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.